Hey everybody, this is Bill. Thank you for stopping by the channel. Today we're talking college football. The season's right on our doorstep. And today, in this video, we're going to preview the Big 12 Conference, the ever-expanding Big 12 Conference. Get a look at what's going on out there. I can tell you, there's not a bad team in the Big 12. They're all pretty good. So let's have a look. See how we have a predicted finish. See what we got. So at 14th and last place in the Big 12, we have Cincinnati. Yeah, the same Cincinnati was just in the playoff. Now, the Bearcats, they've been feisty for years, but it all culminated in a run to the college football playoff in 2021. But after suffering significant personnel losses and sending some players off to the NFL, Cincinnati finished 9-4 last year after starting 6-1. Then, stellar head coach Luke Fickell was plucked by Wisconsin. So the Bearcats look to be starting somewhat from scratch. Now they brought in Scott Satterfield from Louisville to take over, and this move has had some mixed reviews. Now only 3 offensive starters are back, so there is plenty to do, from scheme to production. Top rushers and receivers are gone, but well-traveled Emory Jones, he comes via Florida and Arizona State. He comes in to play quarterback. They also got Florida Gator transfer Xavier Henderson to come in. He'll be an immediate help at receiver. Corey Kiner is slated in at running back. Now, Luke Kandra, he's a transfer from Louisville with Satterfield. He figures prominently up front. Now, the Bearcats could be ferocious on defense. They usually are. Dante Coleone is a national honors candidate to tackle, and Jawan Briggs looks stout at the end position. Deshaun Pace returns at linebacker as the leading returning tackler. Free safety Byron Threats leads the secondary. Another Gator transfer, Jordan Young, he should help at corner. Now the schedule, tough. Week 2 has Cincinnati traveling to Pitt. This is a pivotal game. The conference slate begins with a home game with Oklahoma and at BYU before a bye week. The remainder of the schedule, however, not as bad as it could be. They miss conference favorite Texas and TCU and Kansas State, but there are no sure wins here. And given the changes afoot for Cincinnati, it's hard to see a strong season. A bowl game would seem likely even with a lower conference finish. 13, we have West Virginia. Oh, those country roads. In Morgantown, Neil Brown enters his 5th season, but he seems to be on thin ice after a 5-7 season last year, and a team has not won 8 games since 2018. Now 13 starters are back, so Brown has some holes to fill. Thankfully, the offensive line is experienced and on an upswing. At center, Zach Frazier is a hoss, surefire All-America candidate set to lead the way. At quarterback, Garrett Green seems poised to take over, as does C.J. Donaldson at running back. Nobody with over 20 catches in 2022 returns, but the Mounties did get North Carolina State transfer Devin Carter in the portal. Now on the defensive side, the top 3 tacklers return, so there's promise. Sean Martin leads up front where there were significant losses, and they've got talent back at middle linebacker and the secondary strong. Safety Marcus Floyd and Aubrey Brooks are stellar, and corners Blaine Bishop, who comes in from Minnesota, and Montre Miller, who comes in from Kent State, are going to help. Now, West Virginia's road in 23 might run through the country, but nobody rides soft in the Big 12. A trip on the opener to Happy Valley for a night game on NBC with Penn State is daunting, and a renewal of the backyard brawl brings Pitt to Morgantown. Then comes a very dangerous and improved Texas Tech, followed by a roadie at TCU. Other road games are to Oklahoma and Baylor among the last 3 of the season. Now, this is seemingly a pivotal season for Brown, and the defense could be stingy. 7-5 is reachable, but we think 6-6 is more reasonable given the schedule and the lack of returning offensive production. Will that be enough for Brown? Gonna have to find out. 12, we got the Houston Cougars. Now, Dana Holgorsen seems to have Houston on the edge of some serious success. And although the schedule degree of difficulty increases, landing in the Big 12 could be the spark. Now, Houston makes things happen offensively, and they've averaged 36 points a game a year ago. Now, Donovan Smith comes over from Texas Tech to take over for the departed Clayton Tune at quarterback. Stacy Snead takes over at running back, and Matthew Golden, the top returning pass catcher, is quality. He's going to be joined by West Virginia transfer Tony Mathis and superstar recruit Mikhail Harrison Pilot. Patrick Paul is an all-conference player at tackle and a solid nucleus up front. Now on the stop side, Nelson Caesar anchors the Cougars up front. He had 6 tackles for loss a year ago. A bunch of transfers figuring all over the place, however, on this defense. But 2 that seem poised to excel are defensive end David Ugawugu from Oklahoma and New Mexico transfer A.J. Halsey, who could be an honors candidate in the secondary. It will be interesting to see how these new faces mesh for Houston. Now, they've got to be 3-2 at a minimum before the bye, with probable losses versus TCU and Texas Tech. There are winnable games to close. Only Texas at home and on the road at Kansas State seem out of reach. So a bowl is within reach. The culture and the quarterback performance remain the main factors for Holgorsen in Houston. 11th, we have Iowa State. Now, Matt Campbell is a highly respected coach, a coach that many larger programs have attempted to hire. But after a strong 9-3 2020 season, Iowa State stumbled to a 7-6 record in 2021 with a veteran team ranked within the top 12 in the preseason. Last year, the Cyclones fell to 4-8. So does Campbell have the team now to shift this trend and get back winning? 9 offensive starters returned, but this team struggles scoring, having only recorded an average of 20 points per game last year. Now, quarterback Hunter Deckers is back, but having thrown only 19 touchdowns versus 14 interceptions, he's going to have to improve. They've got a good running back if he's healthy. 3 of the top 4 receivers from 2022 are back, so there's an opportunity there. We think the veteran line, led by Jared Hufford, has a chance to be pretty good. So we see Iowa State improving offensively, but is it going to be enough? 6 return on the stop side. The top 2022 tacklers, Jerry Vaughn, among them, at middle linebacker, and star Bo Freiler are back to give Iowa State something to work with. But the defense up front is unproven, so we need to watch this spot unfold. TJ Tampa, 9 pass breakups in 2022. He leads a decent secondary with promising young players. 2 of them, Jeremiah Cupper and corner Miles Purchase. Now, the non-con schedule finds rival Iowa coming to Ames. So there's an opportunity there or a problem. Now, for a program trying to gain traction, wins will come hard in this conference. Oklahoma State is at home, but the Clones visit OU and come home for TCU. Improved Kansas is home for homecoming. And Texas visits. And road games at Baylor, BYU, and Kansas State loom large. With this schedule and the lack of star, skill position offensive playmakers and a defense green up front that has holes, reaching a bowl game against this slate seems an uphill climb, even for Matt Campbell. But Iowa State's not going to be an easy out for anybody. 10th, we have Oklahoma State. The Cowboys are in some folks' preseason top 25, but we got them down here 10th. It's still a decent football team, folks. Now, 4-year starting quarterback Spencer Sanders inexplicably hit the transfer portal without really even having a designated home. We found that really kind of odd. Gundy picked Alec Bowman, who comes from Michigan via Texas Tech. Now, Gundy can coach quarterbacks, so we expect a reasonable level of competence here. The top 2 rushers are gone, with Ollie Gordon set to step up. Dijon Stribling, who transfers in from Washington State, is a very talented wideout, and he'll be flanked by top returning pass catcher Brennan Presley. Jason Brooks leads the offensive line, where 4 with heavy experience return. Now on the stop side, the Cowboys got a real hoss at linebacker and Colin Oliver to lead the defensive unit. While there is a new defensive coordinator, this unit has been strong over recent seasons. But there is little experience up front, where Anthony Goodlow has come in from Tulsa. The secondary's got big potential, however. Kendall Daniels and Cone Black are patrolling. The schedule, it could be worse. The non-con finds Oklahoma State at Arizona State, who's got a new coaching staff, and a home game against South Alabama. Now, South Alabama is much better than people know. They almost took out UCLA and Westwood last year. Bedlam which due to conference realignment is probably in its final stages. That game's at home. Now the Pokes miss Texas and TCU, and they get Kansas and Kansas State at home. UCF, BYU, and West Virginia, those are the road contests. Now we would be concerned about this team considering the offensive losses, but given the lesser degree of difficulty of the schedule, we think the Pokes avoid a losing season and they could surprise. They could win 10 games. Ninth, we have Brigham Young. Now you may not know it, but Brigham Young has had several winning seasons in a row and has gone 29-9 over the past 3 seasons. The schedule with entrance into the Big 12 has gotten a lot tougher. But BYU's played tough schedules in recent years anyway. There's optimism on offense as well-traveled quarterback Keaton Slovis comes in from Pitt. This gives the Hoogers talented experience at the vitally important position. UNLV transfer running back Aiden Robbins comes in to fill a significant void. Canoe Hill and Cody Epps return at wide receiver. But a real weapon the Cougars have is tight end Isaac Rex, who we think can turn a game. The line is decent, led by an All-America candidate at tackle. 5 of the top 6 tacklers from a year ago returned defensively, so the defensive unit is promising. Tyler Batty at defensive end leads up front. Ben Bywater occupies the middle. Rover Max Tooley is roaming in the secondary, which is decent, with strong safety Micah Harper back after 62 stops in 2022. Now they have road games at Arkansas and Kansas. That's the most challenging before a bye in early October. TCU, Texas, and West Virginia are roadies, while upstart Texas Tech and Oklahoma are difficult home games. Now BYU could well go 8-4 prior to the bowl if the transfer performance is as anticipated, particularly with Slovis staying healthy at quarterback. So we like BYU. Winning season for sure for the Cougars. 8th, we have UCF. Now, given where UCF has come from over the past quarter century, they have to just be thrilled to be new members of the Big 12. Now, with that, though, the schedule becomes much tougher than the Knights are accustomed to. But they're a talented team. They've got some impressive speed. People have found that out on the wrong side of that. John Rhys Plumlee returns at quarterback with a chance to put up decent numbers. He's a great dual athlete. Came over from Ole Miss. R.J. Harvey's back after almost 800 yards rushing a year ago. Alec Holler's a great tight end, and the receiving corps, led by Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson, is talented, even if not heavy on experience. Now on defense, middle linebacker Jason Johnson, who led the team with 126 stops in 2022, he's back. The front 7 have disruptive starters, led by defensive end John Seliskar. Several transfers are arriving to shore up the secondary, which suffered significant personnel losses. This includes Fred Davis from Clemson, Jari Wilson from East Carolina, and DeCorian Patterson from Middle Tennessee. Now, a trip across the country to Boise State Week 2 presents a challenge, but 3-0 in the non-con is reasonable. Then, trips to the Sunflower State for roadies against Kansas State and Kansas, sandwich a bounce house date with Baylor. Now, after a bye, the Knights visit Oklahoma, familiar foe Cincinnati, and Texas Tech. And they've got homers with West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and Houston. Now, the Knights appear solid underdogs in only 3 contests, while almost all the others are a coin flip depending upon health and the meshing and production of the youth and new faces on the roster. We got the Knights 7-5, but they could win a few more than that. They have a talented team. 7th, we have Kansas. Now, Kansas scored big when they hired Lance Leipold as head coach, and this is documented by the Jayhawks making their first bowl appearance in over a decade. Now, after seemingly entertaining several different suitors, Leipold remains in Lawrence, and he has a team capable of matching, if not surpassing, last year's success. Now, brilliant dual quarterback Jalen Daniels returns, and he's nothing short of a playmaker. All top rushers return, most notably the uber-talented Devin Neal. The top 5 pass catchers from 2022 all return, led by Lawrence Arnold and Mason Fairchild. Several transfers, including top recruit Logan Brown from Wisconsin, joined center Mike Nowitzki in what should be an improved offensive line. The Jayhawks are going to score points. Count on it. Now, there are holes defensively, and for Kansas to take the next step, it's this side of the ball that's going to have to improve. They add Colorado State defensive player Devin Phillips to bolster the line up front. Craig Young and Rich Miller are a pair of active linebackers, But the strength of this unit is going to be the secondary, which returns top returning tackler Kenny Logan, who recorded over 100 stops from his safety spot a year ago. Corner Kobe Bryant is outstanding and a National Honors candidate. Now, the Jayhawks are going to be a really fun team to watch. A home game against a tough, physical Illinois team offers an opportunity in the non-con. The conference early slate opens at home with BYU. Then they go to Texas. They're home to UCF, and they go to Oklahoma State before a bye. Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and Kansas State are remaining home contests, and there are road games at Iowa State and Cincinnati, which both of those are winnable. Listen, folks, we project Kansas to win enough games to reach a bowl. This is going to be an exciting football team. They can score points. They could really surprise some folks. Lance Leipold, he knows what he's doing out there. If their quarterback stays healthy, look out. 6, we have Baylor. Now, Baylor, surprisingly, they stumbled to a 6-7 record last season after winning the Big 12 and going 12-2 in 2021. We're not quite sure what happened, but this team only returns 12 starters. However, there are plenty of important pieces returning and a group of transfers that could allow Dave Aranda to get Baylor back to league title contention. Now, Blake Sharpin, who threw 18 scores and 2,700 yards last year, he's back again to lead the offense. And he'll have 1,000-yard rusher Richard Reese to hand off to. Now, Oklahoma State transfer Dominic Richardson comes in, and he is going to be trouble for opposing defensive coordinators. Top pass catcher Monterey Baldwin's back, but look for Arkansas transfer Keytron Jackson. Now, center Clark Carrington leads the unit up front. Now, thankfully for the Bears, they have some experienced talent at each level of their defense, and this is Dave Aranda's specialty, the defensive side of the ball. Gabe Hall and T.J. Franklin anchor up front at defensive end. Top 2022 tackler Matt Jones is back at linebacker, and safety Devin Lemire directs the back end. Now, let's take a look at how the Bears' schedule looks. An early home game against Utah, that's a tone setter. That's a tough football game right there for sure. Now, Texas is a pre-conference favorite. They come to Waco to open the conference schedule, followed by a dangerous road trip to UCF and a home game against dangerous Texas Tech. Now, the back end is not as tough, although there are road contests at Cincinnati, Kansas State, and Texas Christian. Home games are with Iowa State, Houston, and West Virginia. They're all winnable there. There's no Oklahoma. There may be 3 losses before they get the bye week, but only twice does it appear Baylor could be underdogs the rest of the way. So we do have the Bears securely making a bowl game, and we do find them somewhat dangerous, actually. 5th, we have TCU. Boy, howdy did the Horned Frogs have a season for the ages last year in reaching the college football playoff championship game. But that beyond dominating loss to Georgia is certain to leave a harsh mark. Now, we see that offensive coordinator Kendall Briles has left the program, so the offense starts somewhat fresh. Chandler Morris takes over for the uber-talented Max Duggan at quarterback, but he's got experience with the program, and he should respond to this opportunity. Trey Sanders transfers in from Alabama. He's taken over at running back. And John Paul Richardson, he comes over from Oklahoma State to bolster leading returning pass catcher Savon Williams and tight end Jared Wiley in the receiving room. The offensive line loses 3 starters. They're going to need time to gel up there. As usual, the Frogs are disruptive defensively. Demonic Williams leads up front. He welcomes defensive end Tymon Mitchell, who comes in from Georgia. Jamoy Hodge and Johnny Hodges are stout at linebacker, and in the secondary, corner Josh Newton and safety Bud Clark are both all-conference candidates. There are pieces here for TCU to contend again for the conference championship, but a series of things need to come together. The Horned Frogs could be 6-0 before a home game versus BYU, who comes off of a bye week. Then comes a date with Kansas State, which is going to be a fierce battle. But after the bye, 4 tough ones close the schedule. At Texas Tech, dangerous. Home to Texas, they're the preseason conference favorite. And at dangerous Baylor, and they host dangerous Baylor. Then they're on the road at Oklahoma to close. Now, with this schedule, we think TCU falls back a bit, falling perhaps to 7-5, but we're gonna stick with 8-4 for the Horned Frogs, particularly if they can get good quarterback play. 4th, we have Kansas State. Now, the Wildcats had a whale of a season in 2022, winning the Big 12 and earning a trip to the Sugar Bowl. There is no doubt that Coach Chris Kleiman is doing an outstanding job, and the program is on the upswing. They have a solid foundation there at K-State. But can they produce back-to-back conference titles? Boy, that's going to be quite a challenge. Now, offensively, the offensive line is among the nation's best. Cooper Beebe is an All-America candidate once again at center. Guard Harry Panzer and tackle KJ Levinston are all conference candidates among a strong unit that it returns intact. Will Howard's back at quarterback. He's among the best in the conference. DJ Giddens seems poised to step in at running back, but look out for Florida State transfer Trayshawn Ward. This guy can play. Phillip Brooks is a conference honors candidate at receiver. Now, about half the defense was lost, but there are good pieces returning. Defensive end Khalid Duke will lead the unit up front. At linebacker, Austin Moore. He led the Cats in stops in 2022. He's back, along with Daniel Green, who's a top tackler as well. Kobe Savage patrols the secondary. That unit needs to be rebuilt a little bit, but the Cats hope North Dakota State transfer Marquise Single can provide immediate help there. Now, the schedule, anybody in the Big 12 pretty much has a difficult schedule, but Kansas State does look difficult here. Two Cupcakes proceed a dangerous trip to Missouri. They're improved. They're hungry. That's going to be a tough old Big 8 game there. Then they got a home opener against speedy UCF. That'll be interesting. Now, after the bye, the road finds Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, conference favorite Texas, and Kansas. Home games find TCU, Houston, Baylor, and Iowa State. So the most challenging games appear like they're on the road. Therefore, we think K-State falls short of the conference title. They're definitely a bowl team, very solid program. They can score some points offensively. Watch out for them. Third, we have Texas Tech. While we may not have the same criteria as tremendous college football analyst Phil Steele, we find Texas Tech as our surprise team that could challenge the top 10 in 2023. The Raiders are stacked this year under Coach Joey McGuire, who is not getting the proper recognition he deserves. Why do we like the Red Raiders? All 11 starters are back on offense. Quarterback Tyler Show is ready to shine after injury-plagued season in 2022. Folks are sleeping on him if he's healthy. 4 of 5 top receivers from 2022 return, led by Jerand Bradley. Taj Brooks returns from leading the Red Raiders in carries and yards in 2022. The line returns all, but this area is ready for an upgrade. They've got to be playing a little bit better. We think they will be improved. After they got another year under the belt. They do welcome center Rusty Stats. He comes in from Western Kentucky, so he'll add depth or get in there and play. 6 return defensively. They're very strong up front with everybody back. They got tackle Jalen Hutchings. Josiah Pierre, 40 tackles. He's a veteran of the linebacking corps. Free safety Dadrion Taylor Dewerson is the leader of the experienced secondary. NC State transfer Malik Dunlap and Texas transfer Tyler Owen come in to assist already a veteran group. Now, the bye in the scheduling does not come until late October, so it's going to be important for Texas Tech to start strong and remain healthy. A home date, week 2, brings in a ranked Oregon team, and a win here could be a real notice server. There are road tilts at West Virginia, BYU, and Baylor. Home games with Houston and Kansas State before this break. Then Texas Tech closes on a tough 4-game stretch. They're home to TCU, they go to Kansas, home to UCF, and go to Texas. Now, the Red Raiders are very potent offensively, and they're going to light the scoreboard up. Even so, they seem sure underdogs only at Texas, with the home games with Oregon, Kansas State, and TCU coin flips. Look out if the Raiders stay healthy. Now, a 9-3 season seems more reasonable, and even more wins, though, would not shock us. This team is going to light the scoreboard up if they stay healthy, and that's fitting for the Big 12. But look out for Texas Tech. We have the Oklahoma Sooners second. It was not a good year for Boomer Sooner under the first year of head coach Brent Venables' tenure. And the low point was certainly the eye-opening 49-0 loss to Texas at the Texas State Fair. Now, the Sooners ended up 6-7 after playing well in a narrow loss to Florida State in the Cheez-It Bowl. But there are nervous folks in Sooner Nation. So what do we expect in 2023? Well, quarterback Dylan Gabriel's back, and five-star Jackson Arnold is behind him, pushing him, waiting for a chance. Now, OU's got running backs. They got Javante Barnes leading the way. But those in the know have their eye on Marcus Major. Jaleel Farrak and Drake Stoops are the top returning receivers. Andrell Anthony also transfers in from Michigan. But there are no recognized all-conference performers on the offensive line, which is unusual for the Sooners. But we do think the unit is solid, and it welcomes Cal transfer McCade Mature. Defensively, there's plenty of talent. At defensive end, Ethan Downs returns after a stellar 2022 stat sheet, 9 tackles for loss and 9 quarterback hurries. Rondell Bothrod transfers in from Wake Forest, so look for him. Top 2022 tackler Danny Stuntsman, who had a whopping 126 stops, he's back in the middle. DeSam McCullough comes over from Indiana to play the weak side. The secondary has a chance to be stout. Strong safety Billy Boatman's an all-conference honors candidate, and Key Lawrence is solid. Reggie Pearson transfers in from Texas Tech, who has a superstar potential at corner. Now, both Venerables and the Sooners need to get off to a good start to ease some of this pressure, and the schedule allows such an opportunity. If OU's not 5-0 entering the Red River War, the wins in Norman are going to be stiff. Texas is the conference favorite, so that game will, as always, be a challenge. Now, after the bye, hopefully the Sooners have had a chance to grow. They have UCF, West Virginia, and Texas as home games to close out the schedule. The remaining road games are Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Brigham Young. Now, Oklahoma is set for a big year with that schedule. We think 9-3 would be the worst case scenario, but Oklahoma could and probably should and probably will surprise to the upside. Boomer Sooner. Winning the Big 12 this year, we have the Texas Longhorns. Now, could this be the year Texas lives up to expectations and makes a splash on the national scene? With a ton of talent and 16 starters returning, it well could be. Now, this is good news for Coach Steve Sarkisian, who the heat's rising on him. But let's look at the Horns. We'll start offensively. They got 10 starters back. The lone loss was brilliant running back Bijan Robinson. Man, I'm looking for him on my NFL fantasy team. I can tell you that. That loss is going to sting. But even though the Horns have returning talent at running back, most expect 5-star incoming freshman C.J. Baxter to win the job. Now at quarterback, Quinn Ewers is back. And when healthy, he played very well last year. He almost led the Horns to an upset over Alabama. Now the receiving corps is stacked. All-America player Xavier Worthy leads the way. Jordan Whittington and Georgia transfer Adonai Mitchell are all-conference honors candidates at a minimum. And tight end Jatavian Sanders is another All-America candidate. The line is strong and experienced with some young players getting snaps last fall. But tackle Kelvin Banks, who excelled as a freshman last fall, is an All-America player and a NFL pick coming up. We expect Texas to be prolific offensively. Now, on the stop side, there's quality experience back. The top tackler from 2022, middle linebacker Jalen Ford, he's going to challenge for national honors in leading that unit. Now, they're going to miss DeMarvion Overshown, make no mistake. Now, up front, a slew of transfers are looking for time in the unit there to help Baron Sorrell. Star tackler John Day Brerin, 5th in the stops last year, and safety Jaron Thompson, 4th in stops. They are both back. Texas got Jalen Catalon from Arkansas in the portal for the secondary. He, at safety, could be an All-America player. Now, they have a rough slate, particularly with a trip to Alabama in Week 2. Now, in the conference, Baylor and TCU are significant road tilts, with Kansas, Kansas State, and Texas Tech at home. Of course, Oklahoma, who the Horns obliterated last year, is in Dallas. Now, Texas has a chance to go undefeated if they can slay Alabama, but we think they fall just short there and probably stumble somewhere within the conference on the way to winning the conference. But folks, there's a lot of talent here. If Texas can finally put it together, they could well be in the playoff. It's too much talent to count them out. They have to prove it to us. But we got Texas winning the Big 12 anyway. Well, there you have it, folks. We've got Texas winning the Big 12 regular season. The Longhorns are stacked. We've got Oklahoma and Texas meeting once again for the Big 12 championship game. That's going to be held at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Should be a good game. We still have Texas the favorite there. Now look out. Texas Tech, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Baylor. Anybody could, a lot of teams can get, TCU could be back in this. So there's some fine football to be played in the Big 12. We're going to enjoy every minute of it. Appreciate you stopping by. Other previews of the other conferences, we'll have those in the description down below. Check those out. We got our top 25 coming out in a week or so. Check that out if you want to. Listen, folks, the season getting ready to start. Notre Dame, Navy, and Ireland next Saturday. Looking forward to it. Man, our beer's all stocked. We're ready to go. The season's kicking off right around the corner.